Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And in today's episode, we're evaluating the Phillies at the All-Star break. We've made it, and they're still the best team in baseball. So what has gotten them here, and where do they still have to go? All of that and more on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm Connor Thomas, your host. Thank you so much for checking us out. We come to you live from the Locked On Podcast Network. You may know me from some other work, 97.5 The Fanatic on the radio. Been a radio host covering sports teams in the city for 5 years now. Credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 3 years. Thank you again for checking us out. And please make sure you're rating and reviewing if you're listening to this in podcast form, or if you're watching on YouTube and are yet to subscribe, or if you're listening in podcast form and want to flip over to YouTube and subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate that. It gives you notifications when new episodes are posted, costs you nothing, takes no time whatsoever. So number one way to help us out would be subscribing on YouTube. Appreciate that very much if you're going to do that. Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.the. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. The Philadelphia Phillies have a couple players taking trips right now. Maybe they'll use Booking.com because they're heading to the All-Star break, and some are heading to the All-Star game down there in Texas. But for some players, and a lot of players across baseball and every team, well, it's time for the midsummer vacation that baseball players look forward to really once the month of July starts. We got about a week off, and the Phillies are in a great spot heading into the All-Star break. I know what happened yesterday at Citizens Bank Park. The Philadelphia Phillies gave up 8 home runs and 18 runs to the Oakland Athletics in a bullpen game. About all I'll say to that is, man, it happens. I don't think this team stinks. I don't think the A's are an incredible team. It's just one of those days, man. Bullpen game, stuff happens, whatever. We don't need to put too much stock in that series against the A's. You won one of 3, whatever. Letdown series against the Dodgers, maybe. Focused on the All-Star break, maybe. This team's still unbelievable. Where we should start with this team is where they rank against every other team in baseball in the only stat that truly matters in the major leagues or in any professional sports league. Every stat that you could ever look at leads into one thing: wins and losses. So I guess that's 2 stats, but your win-loss record. And right now, the Philadelphia Phillies still have the best win-loss record in baseball. They have 62 wins. They have 34 losses. No other team has more than 58 wins. 3 teams, have that. The Guardians, Orioles, and Dodgers all sit at 58. The Phillies, 4 wins better than all of those teams. They're 3.5 games up on the Guardians, who have played 1 less game. It's just the best team in baseball. There's no other way to put it. And when we evaluate the Philadelphia Phillies at the All-Star break, in the coming days, we're going to have episodes talking about the All-Star game. We're going to preview the Home Run Derby later in today's episode. But we're also going to take this time to evaluate individual players, parts of the team, trade pieces potentially, a lot of stuff that we don't get to when we're doing the daily recaps of games or previews of series or games, stuff like that. So some content on where the Philadelphia Phillies go from here will be coming your way this week as we all enjoy a little bit of time away from just watching baseball every single day. But the way this team is played, you should be ruining the All-Star break. I would love to just keep watching the Phillies play every night. They've been that good this season. This mark, 62 wins at the All-Star break, is the clear highest mark in franchise history. No Phillies team has ever had more wins at the All-Star break than the 2024 Phillies. Now, the All-Star break comes at different times depending on the season, so it's not a perfect science, but they've been about as good as you could have possibly imagined. Probably better than anybody possibly imagined this team could be to this point in the season. There are a couple of things that you need to keep an eye on, though, if you're a Philadelphia Phillies fan, outside of the record, right? The important thing is that they are still the best team in baseball, and it's a clear margin between them and everybody else right now, at least in my opinion. But a couple of sticky points. One, you look at a situation where the outfield still has not been that productive. That's going to be something that is addressed at the trade deadline. That's going to be one of the major pieces. Our last episode, you can go ahead and check it out for my thoughts on Whit Merrifield being released. Well, we talked about that, and that should show you, yeah, they're going to add to the outfield before the trade deadline. Dave Dombrowski is absolutely going to do that. Maybe two pieces, a starter and a bench player, because Whit Merrifield was not starting. But that shows you where they're going to go. So you need to figure out what's going on in the outfield. I think Dave Dombrowski is the right man for the job. He is a future Hall of Fame executive. There's no doubt in my mind, or probably anyone's mind who has followed his career at all, that he's going to be a Hall of Famer and one of the great executives that we've seen in this era of baseball. So I trust him to get the job done. That problem will resolve itself as the trade deadline draws closer. Some other things facing the Phillies currently, and we're looking more at like the negative side, honestly, because the evaluation positively is something we've been doing all year, really. It would be boring to recap the fact that the starting pitching has been unbelievable. The bullpen has been really good. The offense, in spite of not getting much from the outfield, has been great. Trey Turner is on an absolute heater. Bryce Harper is in an MVP conversation again. Like, you have Alec Bohm is an all-star starter. You have so many guys on this team that have exceeded expectations, or for the guys with very high expectations like Harper and Turner, met expectations when they've been available. And with JT Realmuto coming back shortly after the All-Star break, you're getting healthier. It's just a great, great place to be for the Philadelphia Phillies. I don't really see any signs of them slowing down. They may not, they may not play at the pace that they played up until the All-Star break through the rest of the year. There could be a bad stretch here or there. Every team goes through it. And the Phillies are going to be hard to catch because they're just so darn consistent. But when we go back to the evaluating the team, some things to keep an eye on, Ranger Suarez is another one. His last 4 starts, he has not been good. He's got like 20-some innings pitched in those starts, and it is a stark contrast to how good he was in his first 90-some innings pitched. Now, I'm not overly worried about Ranger Suarez long term. Maybe the All-Star break is exactly what he needs. Take some time away. Just get his mind clear. You need a little bit of a breather sometimes. I've talked about that multiple times for different players, and I talked about Ranger Suarez recently with that. And it's just kind of, you've got to, I don't know actually if I brought it up on here, but all it really is, he's not hurt. There doesn't seem to be any injury or anything. He's just can't find his curveball, can't find his changeup. It's tough when you don't have an out pitch. I think he's going to be fine because the large sample size over Ranger Suarez's career is that he's a better pitcher than what he's been over the past 4 starts. Now, it's also that he's a worse pitcher than what he looked like for the first 90 innings of his season, where he was a Cy Young candidate, and he may still be that when everything's all said and done. I'm not worried about Ranger Suarez, and guess what, folks? Let's say Ranger Suarez doesn't have a stellar second half of the season. We're just going to call it first half and second half just for sake of ease. I know it's not actually the halfway point, but let's say he doesn't have a stellar post All-Star break part of the schedule. You still have Zach Wheeler, who's in the Cy Young conversation. You have Aaron Nola, who quietly has been having an awesome season. He's been a bit outshined by some of his great pitching teammates, but you've got him as well. Christopher Sanchez is going to be in the All-Star game. He's fully deserving of that. He's been unbelievable. Little blips on the radar at points and starts, but largely he's been great. And then maybe you'll figure out what goes on with that 5th spot in the rotation. I don't think that'll be something they address at the deadline because, frankly, you don't need a 5th starter in the postseason. You need 3, maybe 4 great pitchers. We've seen the Phillies utilize that exceptionally well in postseasons of the past 2 years. So if Ranger Suarez gets right, and I think he will to some extent, I don't know if he'll be back to like completely shut down, dominant, one of the best pitchers we've seen in a while. Like he was like prime Jacob deGrom for the first 90-some innings of his season. I don't think that was ever going to be like fully sustainable, but maybe he'll get close to that. Maybe he will get back to that. I don't know. I'm not worried about Ranger Suarez. The only other stuff besides that to talk about, defense has been fine. Health is getting there. Zach Wheeler will be fine. I know he missed his start on Sunday. That's why we had a bullpen game for the Philadelphia Phillies that led to that home run derby the day before the home run derby. But bottom line is, I look at the bullpen and I say, okay, you could probably use another arm. Not that Matt Strahm has taken too much of a step back, or Jeff Hoffman has taken too much of a step back, or that you can't trust Jose Alvarado or Ryan Kerkering. I think you have 4 arms in the bullpen that are plus arms. Kerkering, Alvarado, Strom and Hoffman being all-stars. You can go and get a fifth bullpen arm, and with how good this starting rotation is, that should probably be enough to carry you through October. There'll be some sketchy innings where you may have to throw Greg Soto. You may have to throw Sir Anthony Dominguez in big-time spots, but the hope is you'll be up in some games where you can eat innings with those guys, and then the high leverage can be handled between five guys. Whoever you acquire at the trade deadline, and we hope that works out, they will acquire a reliever at the deadline. I feel very, very confident in that. And then Kerkering, Strom, Hoffman, and Alvarado. That's enough to get it done. This team has everything they need. They're still going to add more, and they're the best team in baseball already. So my evaluation of the Philadelphia Phillies at the All-Star break, this is as good of a team to this point in a baseball season that I've seen play in Philadelphia. Now, I'm only 29 years old, and I have heard some commentary from people who have seen teams of the past, Phillies teams of the past, that, yeah, they're in the conversation, but it'd be easy on jumping the gun. And I may have jumped the gun on another conversation as well. I put out a tweet over the weekend that got a lot of response. I'll tell you what that tweet is, why people were not happy with me about it, and why I still think I'm absolutely right. And anyone who's not happy about it is either hating or scared. I'll break down what I mean coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. First, though, let's talk about Booking.com, our title sponsor. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rivals' cities: Atlanta, Miami, Washington, New York. You can go to any of these places with Booking.com. They got hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city, or maybe in Texas if you want to get down there for the All-Star game. By the time you watch this, you'll probably have a day, but Booking.com can find a way to get that done for you. They're amazing. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. So book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app, and you can plan your perfect vacation with our friends over at Booking.com. You should also check out Supply House. Supply House is the best. If you work in the skilled trades, this is who you wanted to check out. Get supplies from the sites that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, well, you get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business. You can talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades, you can get a competitive advantage by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. So what are you waiting for? Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at our friends, supplyhouse.com. All right, so I put a tweet out over the weekend, and it was met with a lot of response. Some positive. Most of the responses were negative. Now, when you put out a tweet that has a lot of reaction to it, and a lot of likes and a lot of retweets, it probably means there's a lot of people out there who agree with what you're saying. I'm still getting notifications, even as I pulled this up. This tweet was put out on July 13th. So what is that, Saturday at 1:16, and I'm still getting notifications on it. Now, I'm never a mute notifications type of guy because, frankly, I like to see what people are saying. I like to get a pulse of the fan base or other fans in baseball and how they feel about the thought processes I go through. And that's kind of the point of social media. I don't want to turn off my connection to people who want to respond, whether you agree or not. But here's the tweet. And this is based on Christopher Sanchez being named as an all-star replacement. So he is an all-star. I know he wasn't voted in or selected. He was selected as a replacement, and he will be there. So it counts. That makes it 8 all-stars for the Philadelphia Phillies. It ties a major league record. And my tweet reads, Major League Baseball has existed for 121 years. There's never been a team with more All-Stars than the 2024 Phillies. We are witnessing one of the greatest teams in the history of sport. Now, there's the history of the sport. Sorry, it may have sounded like I said sport there. There are other great teams in other sports that I can't possibly compare to. It's apples to oranges. But bottom line is, there are a couple things that people disagreed with me on this tweet for. We'll take the logistical ones out of the way. There are some people who are annoyed with me saying 121 years Major League Baseball has existed for. That's how long it's been since the National League and the American League merged. I know that there have been existing, like those leagues existed before the National League and American League before merging for longer. I also know the All-Star game has not been around for 121 years. Just that is the date that I picked. There was no rhyme or reason to it besides that's when Major League Baseball started, and that's what I had on my mind. I'm not trying to build a narrative or anything. There's never been a team with more All-Stars than the 2024 Phillies. Factually correct. 8 is the most any team has ever had. The most recent team to do it last year, the Atlanta Braves, the 2001 Mariners did it, but it is few and far between. And we're talking about some great regular season teams, some record-breaking regular season teams. But notice I brought up the 2023 Braves as the most recent team to do it. And that's where part of the big argument happened surrounding this tweet. The second paragraph where I say we are, or I guess the latter sentence that I indented, says we are witnessing one of the greatest teams in the history of the sport. And people lost their minds. And you got to hear me out on this one, folks. Okay. I got a bunch of responses saying it doesn't matter if they don't win the World Series. Oh, that's hyperbole. It's way too early to make this call. There's so much more baseball left to be played. All-Stars are not a perfect way of determining whether or not a team is great. All of these things, I understand their criticism, and people pointed to the 2023 Braves as a great example of why this is not an indicator of being one of the best teams in the history of the sport. Here's where I'll contend that, right? I don't think last year's Braves team, even though the Philadelphia Phillies knocked them out again, I'll never get tired of that. Losers. I don't think they weren't a great team. That team was unbelievable. They had multiple MVP candidates. Their pitching staff was really, really good. They were one of the most powerful offensive teams of my lifetime, of a generation probably of baseball fans. And I know their shortcomings in the postseason. I'm not trying to tell you, oh, that team should have been better. No, I'm happy the Phillies beat them. I think the Phillies were the clearly better team in the postseason and in that series. And I believed the Phillies were going to win that series, and they did. So cool. Comfortable. We're all on the same page there. But I'm not going to pretend like they weren't a great team. I'm not going to do that. That's unfair to the players. That's unfair to history. That's revisionist. The 2001 Mariners, an unbelievable team. They tied the Major League win record. Tied or set it? No, I believe they set it, actually. I'm sorry. It's been a long time, and I was young in 2001, 7 years old. But that team was unbelievable. I'm not saying that the Philadelphia Phillies are if you built a Mount Rushmore of baseball teams, that the 2024 Philadelphia Phillies are on there. My main point behind that tweet is we are witnessing something very, very special. And when we reach a point at the All-Star break, it is a natural break in the season to make these type of proclamations. I understand there's a long way to go. I understand this does not guarantee anything. This is what I think. This is me projecting out. I don't see this team slowing down. I don't. Maybe slightly, but not to the point where I'm not going to consider them an unbelievable team. The Phillies are a storied franchise with a lot of failure, but also a lot of success in their history. This team could easily be the highest win total for any Philadelphia Phillies team of all time. You could argue they are the most talented Philadelphia Phillies team we've ever seen. And while the postseason success thing is absolutely valid, if they go out like the 2011 Phillies in the first round of the playoffs that they play in, that's going to be a huge mark against this team. No one's going to sit there and be like, yeah, I know they lost in the divisional round, but you're looking at one of the greatest teams. No, they won't have that moniker about them anymore. And I understand that. But think about the calculated projection that I'm giving you. This team has withstood injuries. They've not allowed themselves to go on bad stretches. They've only lost 3 games in a row once to this point in the season. They have not yet been swept by another team in baseball. They just swept the Dodgers themselves. So, that is an impressive feat to not have been swept pre-All-Star break. They bounced back really, really well from losses. They lost game 1 of the series against the A's. They win game 2. They lost game 3. I expect them to continue this up when they pick up against the Pirates to start the post All-Star break part of their schedule. But they've been resilient. They have been like just absolutely machine-like in the way they bounce back from issues that face the team. They don't have any major issues facing them. It's not like they got off to this hot start and then Bryce Harper was hurt for the year and Zach Wheeler was hurt for the year and they're both done. Like, that's what the Braves are facing right now. The Phillies aren't facing that. They got guys coming back. Wheeler's going to be fine. JT Realmuto's going to come back soon. Harper's come back. Schwarber's come back. Like, you need to figure out that fifth spot in the rotation, but ultimately that's not a spot. Like, remember, that 4 aces team in 2011, do you know who their fifth starter was? Yeah, people are screaming Joe Blanton at their screen. It was Joe Blanton. You can get Joe Blanton level production out of somebody in that fifth spot in the rotation, whether it's Spencer Turnbull coming back, which will be a while, Taijuan Walker coming back, maybe the end of this month, or whoever you keep in that spot as kind of a filler guy. Bullpen games are probably not going to be great if you have to do that, but you can find a way to get the job done without like an elite level fifth starter, like you're even a good fifth starter. You could have a bad fifth starter and still be perfectly fine. So I don't know. I firmly believe, like, this is what my eyes are telling me. And if I'm wrong, at the end of the season, whenever that comes for the Philadelphia Phillies, if that's October early or October late, if it ends in a parade or if it ends in the first round, listen, I may be right, I may be wrong. I can only tell you what I think in this moment and what my eyes are telling me. And I've seen 20-some years of baseball. I've played the game at the collegiate and semi-professional level. I'm not trying to make myself out to be like a Major League All-Star, but I know a little bit about this game. And I've seen some things, good and bad. My eyes are telling me that this is the best Phillies team I've ever seen. And my eyes are telling me that they have a chance to be even better than what their peak has been so far this year. Like, they've had really good starting pitching. You get bad starts in there. You've had really good offensive production at points. Sometimes guys slump. I think that the best version of this team is still out there, and maybe they'll never reach it because the best version of any team is rarely reached. You never hit like that perfect stretch where for a week or two, everybody's kind of hitting and everyone's hot. It's not realistic, but my point is they've got a lot of talented players on this team that may not have even hit their stride yet. Bryson Stott hasn't had a great year. Nick Castellanos struggles, well documented, even though he's starting to come out of it. JT Realmuto's been out hurt. Like, you can find a better version of this team. Oh, and by the way, they're going to add at the trade deadline. Dave Dombrowski's going to get that done. So that's why I put that tweet out. I believe we're witnessing one of the great teams in the history of the sport of baseball. I could be proven wrong, or I could be proven right. And I believe I'm right. That's all I can say. I can only give you my opinion. Feel free to let me know in the comments to this episode, the same thing people are letting me know in the comments to that tweet, whether you agree or not. Coming up tonight, we got a fun event. Alec Bohm is in the home run derby. I'll tell you about the participants. I'll tell you about Alec Bohm and why he has a chance to do the funniest, but also in a position where you talk about this team every day, one of the more annoying things possible. We'll see. Coming up next. But first, before we get into that, I want to tell you about our next sponsor, because if you want to go to the All-Star game, if you want to go to the home run derby, if you want to go to any major sporting events or events in general, you got to check out GameTime. GameTime is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets the first pitch. They got killer last-minute deals. They got flash sales for different seats and rows and everything. They've got zone deals. If you let them pick the seat and row, you can get a discount there. All in prices. You got views from your seat that you'll see before you purchase the tickets, and their lowest price game guarantee, the Game Time guarantee. You get 110% of the difference if you can find a ticket in the same row and section as the ones listed on Game Time. They'll pay you if you can get that done. That's how confident they are. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets, but they do it for all kinds of tickets. Football when that season starts. Hockey and basketball just ended, but you got Summer League going on for the NBA. If you can come up with a sporting event or comedy, concert, theater, any of that stuff that you need a ticket for, chances are you can find one on Game Time. So go ahead and check them out, and we'll even cut you a deal, right? You go download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, and you know it's guaranteed. All right, so the home run derby is tonight, and Alec Bohm is in it. Now, he may have the least amount of home runs hit so far this year of any participant. He may have the longest odds if you're looking to place a wager on that. And if so, go to our friends over at FanDuel, sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. Check them out for all your wagering needs if you want to bet on the home run derby. But he's in it, and it's always fun to see a Philadelphia Philly in it. The last one who competed was Kyle Schwarber when he had that situation where it seemed like he maybe didn't give it his best effort, and Albert Pujols ended up knocking him out in Pujols' final season. Yeah, that was 2 years ago, I believe, in 2022. But I don't think Alec Bohm's going to be throwing this one anytime soon. I don't think he's going to be winning this one anytime soon, too. Now, it would be hilarious and annoying if Alec Bohm goes out there tonight and just parks every single pitch into the seats, just turns on a performance that we didn't think he was capable of. Here's why it would be funny, because he has 11 home runs on the year going into the All-Star break. He's not a power hitter. But also because Phillies fans, now this is going out the window since he's become one of the best third basemen, best hitters in baseball, but there was a constant complaining about his ability to hit for power. You see a guy that's very tall, should be able to create more pop based on his size, and he's in great shape, gets in the weight room. He should have more power just by looking at him, right? So if he doesn't do that in regular games and then goes out and wins the home run derby, I'm going to get a million tweets and calls and YouTube comments about, man, why can't he do this in the game? See, he has power, he just chooses not to use it, all of this stuff. All right. I will, you know what? It'll be just funny enough for him to win it that I will deal with all of that. So I'm not too worried if that does happen. I'll live with it. I don't think he's going to win. Just to give you an idea of who he's up against, the other competitors, let me see if I can do this from memory. I'm going to try not to miss one. Bobby Witt Jr. is in it. Teoscar Hernandez of the Dodgers is in it. Bobby Witt Jr. of the Royals. Marcell Ozuna is in it. Ozuna from the Braves. Pete Alonso of the Mets is probably going to do some weird meditation and work out during it. He's doing it. Jose Ramirez of the Guardians is doing it. That's 5. I need 2 more because obviously Alec Bohm is doing it to get us to 6. Adolis Garcia is doing it of the hometown Texas Rangers. It's always nice to see someone from the team that is hosting the All-Star game hitting the home run derby. Feels a little bit more special when you see that happen. You get the home crowd behind. And there's one more guy who's escaping me right now, and it's not going to come to me, so I'm going to have to look it up. But all of those guys have better odds to win the home run derby tonight than Alec Bohm. If you're tuning in to see a Philadelphia Philly hoist the trophy, you're probably not going to. Oh, Gunnar Henderson. How could I forget Gunnar Henderson of the Orioles? I didn't even look it up. I promise. See, I didn't even get to the point of who's competing. But yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see Alec Bohm display a little bit of power. It'll be fun I like the home run derby more than I like the All-Star game. Maybe that's a hot take. I brought it up on the radio this morning, and I don't know. Some people agreed, some people didn't. To me, I watch baseball games every night with the Philadelphia Phillies. And at times this year, the Philadelphia Phillies have looked like an all-star team. The home run derby is just such a display of raw power that you don't get to see unless you're watching the Oakland Athletics face the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen. Yeah, sorry. Well, it is what happened. They hit 8 home runs. But you don't really get to see these guys show off power that way in a lower stress environment, perfect setting. You're getting batting practice, pitching, and just hit the ball as far as you can. I can't wait to see what they have in store down there at Texas. The ball flies pretty well down there. The weather should be hot. I mean, heck, it's 99 up here in Philadelphia today. I'm sure it's hot down there in Texas. I haven't checked the weather, but yeah, it's hot in Texas. Always is. Who's my pick, though? Let's see who I want to go with. My gut says Marcell Ozuna, but I will not pick a Braves player, and I will not pick that specific player. Honestly, kind of crazy that Major League Baseball is deciding that's one of the guys they want to showcase. Gunnar Henderson has a pretty darn good chance. Adolis Garcia, I think, would be, if you're betting, a good bet as well, because he went through a long homerless drought during the season, the first half of the season. Doesn't mean he can't hit batting practice. It means he might not be seeing pitching well, but he's still incredibly strong. You saw what he did in the postseason last year. I'm probably between those two. I'm going to go ahead and say that Adolis Garcia is my pick to win the home run derby on his home field down there in Texas. Alec Bohm, if he can advance out of the first round, that would be a win. That'd be fun. Or if he could just smoke doubles in the gaps and watch the kids who are out there shagging get out of the way, run for their lives, that would be entertaining as well. Obviously, hoping nobody gets actually smoked, but people have been making that joke that those kids better watch out when Bohm's up because all he does is hit doubles in the gaps. Maybe he'll show some power tonight. Whatever the case, it'll be fun. Tomorrow's episode will preview the All-Star game, who I'm looking forward to seeing from the Phillies and from around the league in that one. And we'll continue just kind of our breakdown of the first half of the Phillies season and what's still to come. A lot of fun stuff that we don't normally get a chance to get into that we'll cover throughout this week, as I told you in the open to this episode. But that's all for today's episode. Thank you again for checking us out. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And following along with Locked On Phillies is easy to do. You can rate and review wherever you consume your podcast. You could also subscribe to the YouTube, which really helps us out. You just go to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button in the top corner, get you notifications when new episodes are posted. And it really, again, helps us grow the Locked On Phillies and Locked On Podcast Network brand, which I very much appreciate. Well, again, that's all. Good luck to Alec Bohm in the home run derby. And we'll talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.